Today we are in my backyard, which is actually in a garden shed with June Ferderer. And she is going to tell us a little bit about the history of her gardening career. She's pretty local. She's in the Swanzey area, but she does write an article for the Keene Sentinel. So June, welcome. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad you're here in my backyard.
Nice to be here.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how you got started with gardening. You've been gardening for a long time.
Yes, I have. Well, I had grandparents who were very into gardening.
Yeah.
And my grandfather was a great manure man.
Ah!
And so I learned from him, and then
Yeah.
my uncle was also a good gardener, and
Yeah.
my mother. And I used to get out in the garden and help my mother, and I thought, do I really like this?
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, I guess I do. I
Yeah.
better admit it.
Yeah.
And so I took off on my own and have been gardening ever since.
Good. So you like to get your hands dirty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I hear some people say that if you're a real gardener, you don't use gloves.
I use both. I have some, I didn't bring them, but I have some very good gardening gloves that fit like a glove, and you can do fine work with them. You can prune bushes that have,
Spikes.
And it doesn't even go through them.
Right.
Of course, if you get a big one, it will, but
Yeah.
it protects your hands.
Yeah. We talked a little bit earlier when you and I were talking before the show about manure and the importance of manure. And you had a little story about manure and your birthday.
Yes, well, my birthday is in the end of March, and where I lived, that was about the time you started preparing your garden. And my husband found this, we called him the Ralph the Manure Man, and he would bring a load of manure, a truckload of manure for my garden, and we always said it was for my birthday. That was my birthday gift. And I had a friend who said, when I told her, oh, I got the best, beautiful looking manure, she said, how can you say that about manure?
Yeah.
And I said, well, it is. And then she started to see how the things were growing in my garden. And one day she came over and she said, what's the name of the manure man?
Yeah.
And she and her neighbor split a load of manure.
Yeah.
And then she said one day, boy, that was a beautiful load of manure.
It's funny how the little things can make people so happy, but I can relate to that too, because we got a load of manure from Stonewall Farm a couple years ago when we were just starting our garden. And it was funny, the other day my husband said, so Jody, are we going to go get some more manure? Because I think we need manure before the winter starts. And so anyway, it's funny because it really does make such a difference. And I know you've noticed a lot in your garden too.
Yes,
it cuts down on some of the pests that you have. You don't have to fertilize quite so much. It makes your soil nice and airy. Anything else that I can think of, or that you can think of that I missed?
Well, no, between the manure, rotted manure, not ripe manure, and compost, and the green sand, I find that is a good combination for most anything.
Right.
And a few times, I don't have my soil tested in the vegetable garden every year, but when I do, you tell them that you garden organically and what you use, and the report comes back, and most of the time it just said, add a little more green sand.
So what is green sand?
Green sand is a sea deposit.
Yeah, and I think we have a bag here. I think I'll just grab a little bit for us.
And it's a good source of potash, but it has several trace elements, usually 17 to 22 different trace elements, which is also very important to have the plants growing well.
Yep. And it was funny, you did an article in the Sentinel last year, and I actually tried the green sand in my garden because of you. And I thought, I don't know what it is, but it just looks like sand and
green.
Yeah, and to me, it's something that will give energy to my garden. So I thought, well, why not try it? So green sand is a great product. But what June is here to do today is talk to us a little bit about seed starting. And she has a log that she's been keeping for how long, June?
Well, this book is from 1993, but I think I had another book before that.
Yep.
But what I do, I like to keep good records of my orders, my catalog and orders for seeds, and if I buy the seeds at a local nursery. And then on the bottom of the page, I usually put a list of plants that I want to buy instead of starting everything from seed. And I have several columns. You can do this on a computer, but I find it much easier just to come in and sit down and add something. So the first column is the name of the seed, the variety. The second column is a suggested date for sowing indoors. The next is the actual date, because I don't always get to the suggested date.
Right.
And the next column is the date of germination. And that means that the majority, the most percentage of germination. And I might put the date they're transplanted. And on another page or so, when the flowers start blooming and the yield starts coming in, when I first pick the first peas and how many. So I keep a track of all the yield throughout the season.
Yeah.
Of course, this year I've had trouble with woodchucks, and I had the most beautiful peas, which were growing to about 18 inches in height and full of flowers, and the next morning I went down and they were reduced to 4 inches.
Oh, no.
So
and you had a big fat woodchuck running around in your yard.
Three of them.
Oh, gosh.
3 woodchucks and a skunk. And the skunk ate my zucchini.
Oh.
I went down and saw so many zucchini, and the next day the plant looked like it was sat on, and the zucchini was gone. So I set a trap nearby with a peanut butter sandwich and got a skunk.
Wow. And what did you do with the skunk?
I called the farmer, and he takes care of it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I'm sure that the skunk is very happy someplace else.
Yes,
yeah,
someplace
and you're
else.
happier that
Yes,
it's someplace
I am.
else. Yeah. So,
But I like to start with, I use Pro Mix. It's a soilless mix. It's sterile, and it's mostly sphagnum moss
it's
and
very light.
perlite. And actually, I use this for everything. I use it for starting seeds. I use it for repotting house plants. I put it in my window boxes and containers. It's light. When you have a container on your deck, it's much lighter to move it around because it's sphagnum moss. And what I do is I moisten it first before I use it, because it's impossible, next to impossible, to wet it when it's in a container.
Right.
So I do that. And I
So
also,
has this been moistened at all?
yeah, just a little bit.
So it's just to the touch. It's not like it's soaking wet.
not,
It's not like mud.
you get used to the consistency you want. It's like playing with dough.
Yep.
You know how much flour and all that.
Right.
I moisten it, and then I let it sit for a little bit to see that it's a good consistency and not too much moisture.
Right.
And I also sterilize my flats. I use these flats and these 6-packs for seeds.
So these have little holes in the bottom.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I wash them in a solution of 9.9 parts water to 1 part bleach, and I rinse them.
Yep.
And so what I do, I just, because it's sterile and I'm using a sterile medium, I fill this almost to the top. You don't want it too low, because if you plant the seeds and it's too low, they might have a damper problem.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you do have to watch out for when you're planting your seeds?
Well, between the sterile container and the sterile mix, I don't have much problems.
Right. Right. Can you overwater the seeds? Is
Well,
that a problem?
no, what happens when I first plant the seeds, I usually make like 2 rows.
Okay. So let's show them again how she makes 2 rows
Two
in the
rows
pot.
And I plant the smaller seeds in there. And then when you read the back of the package, it tells you if they need to be covered. Some of the seeds don't need to be covered. Usually the real tiny seeds do best if you just put them in those rows and secure them so that they touch the soil. The soil is mixed. Others, they like no covering. They germinate in the light. They need
So what would be
light.
examples of those that you wouldn't want to cover?
Real tiny seeds.
Like lettuce? Would you want to cover lettuce at all, do you think?
Yeah, but you'd have to read, because each one is different.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, if you just want to do a few seeds, this is a simple way. Just use a container. And because the mix is moist, you can slip it into a plastic bag, which creates a little greenhouse. But don't put this in the sunlight because it'll cook. Put it in bright light. And after the seeds, most of them germinate, you can take the plastic bag off. And then when you water, you don't, mostly you don't have to water anything until the seeds germinate. When you take the plastic bag off, then you can always water it from the bottom, because you don't want these seeds to be disturbed by water.
Right. And do you want them sitting in the water, or do you want to water it and then have the water come up into the soil and then leave it?
Yeah, just put it in a basin of water, and you can feel the top when it's moist again, and take it out and let it drain. You don't want it sitting in the water for any length of time. And then the seedlings, when they start to grow, when they're about 4 weeks old, you use this, I use this fish emulsion.
Yep.
Put it in water.
Yep. And how do you use the fish emulsion? I think it's 4 tablespoons to a gallon of water, it says.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't really, if you've got a lot of plants, you could make a whole gallon, but you're not going to use that much, probably once or twice. So you might want to reduce your ratios down a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of gauge it.
Yeah. Yeah, but she's been doing this for a long time too. So, but read the packages, and they'll help you a lot. And you can go online as well.
And for the larger seeds, like the marigolds, I fill this with the mix, and then plant 1 or 2 seeds in each petition, and then you don't have to do any transplanting.
Now, would you leave both seeds if they popped up, or would you take one out?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
I don't like to get rid of anything unless it's crispy brown and dead.
Yeah.
Now, the other setup, if you want to do more seeds, is I haven't used a unit like this as a starter kit, because I have one of those shells, those 3-tier shells with the lights on, and they have trays, and I set all my flats in that tray, and then it's an adjustable light over it.
Right.
And it has a Grow Lux light, and each one has its own light,
Yeah.
and it has knobs on the side that you can lower and raise it. And when you start the seeds, you want the light very close.
Yeah. So for a beginner who's going to do this at home that probably doesn't have one of the 3 tiers, this is a little bit of an apparatus here. This comes down on the little ropes here, but it would come down to the height, and so you'd want it
Very close.
closer down here, like.
We could show you this way.
All right. So this is a heated mat, and this heated mat helps keep the soil a little bit warmer.
Well, when you have a heat mat, it speeds up the germination.
Right.
So that you can have an assembly line. You know,
And now, would you want to use this after they germinate at all? Or
well, no. You don't want things to get too leggy. I use it for, well, I have a big mat, and that has the heat, but it also has a thermostat. And some of the seeds you'll see that says 73 degrees or whatever.
Right.
On that mat, I usually start a lot of my tuberous begonias. And then on this other rack, I put the other seeds on the tray.
Yeah.
And the tray holds, it's about that deep, so it holds water too.
Yeah.
But this would have to be real close.
So this close, or
Yeah, just about like that.
All right.
And as the seeds grow, you can raise it.
Okay,
bring
and
it
that's
up.
what the string is here, is
Yeah.
you could raise it as you go. So that would be a really good investment for somebody if they're looking into starting seeds on their own.
Yes, because it keeps the seedlings growing upright. They don't lean toward a window or anything that they're, and it keeps it sturdy. They're strong.
Right.
They
right.
don't get floppy.
Right, right. I started some tomatoes a few years ago, and everything looked great until a few weeks later when they were like this long, and I didn't want to plant them in my garden that long, although you can, because you can put them in and they'll root up, but I didn't invest in a light, and I think the light is really important. Now, this system also that you had for this tray has another tray that's underneath it, as well as a heating tray that comes with it. So you can buy this as a package. Many of the products that you see here on the show today are from Achille Agway, and their slogan is brands you trust and people who know. So if you go down and talk with Dana or any of the staff down there, they can help you and put you in the right direction.
Yeah, Peter is great.
Yes, he is. Yes, yeah. So yeah, so this comes as a package, and you could actually use it. There is another mat here that would be able to hold 2 trays if that was something that you wanted to do. Because it's amazing when you do start seeds, how much room you're going to be using. Because you think, oh, I only have a small packet of seeds. But when you have 6 packets of seeds, that makes for a lot more space. So.
And there's a lot of seeds in a small packet.
Right, right.
And this cover creates a little greenhouse effect. It keeps the moisture in. And these heat mats are very subtle in their heat. They're not.
They're not, steamy hot.
Yeah, they're not hot.
So how long would you keep this cover on when you're doing this?
Until all the seeds have germinated,
Okay.
the majority of them,
Okay.
and then you take it off.
Okay, good, good. So this setup here, also, this is a pretty large setup. So this is a full tray, as you can see. They also have other smaller trays available. There's this medium size, and then this longer tray. It looks kind of like a window box, but you can buy different sizes. You can buy different either plugs, or you can start your plants in the soil medium, but we're going to go with what June's doing today. So she likes the medium, and I think that that is a great way to go as well.
Yeah, since I use it for everything, the window boxes and containers, I buy a 3.8 cubic foot. I call it a bale, and it's Pro Mix, and it's a professional. It says Professional BX.
Yeah.
And then later on, when you're potting up your seedlings and you're still putting them in smaller pots, I could add the green sand with this.
Okay.
And then, of course, the fish emulsion is good to mix.
Yeah.
And a foliage spray later on of fish emulsion is great.
Right, right.
I spray that on the established plants outside.
Yeah. I actually, let me just show you something that I bought. It wasn't all that expensive, but I have this little sprayer that I use.
Oh, I have one of those too.
And it's really great because you fill it up. It's got measurements on the side, and you can put your fish emulsion in, and then you just press it to make some pressure inside. And then spray it on your plants. It makes it really easy to plant everything in your garden, to put on everything in your garden.
Yeah, the foliage addition, spray makes a great addition to keeping the plants growing nice and green and strong.
Yeah, because it's not just about the roots; it's about the whole plant.
Yeah,
because the plant needs the sun, and everything needs to work in its motion. So, okay, so. Let's see, would you like to show us a little bit more, like maybe on the lettuce, or exactly how you would do that, just in case anybody has any questions? I know that, every packet is different of the seeds. This one here for the lettuce, on the back, it shows all the different information that you need, like planting depth, seed spacing, days of germination, spacing after thinning, and days to maturity. So it's really important to look at these, because even though it's a lettuce, say example, there's all kinds of lettuces that have different criteria to them, and different things to look out for. Also, what do you think about seeds that are older seeds? How long do you think they usually last?
They usually, you can get that online, that they usually tell you how long a seed. Usually what happens when you save the seed, the next year the germination percentage is less. But and if you want to save seeds from some flowers, don't do it with hybrids, because the hybrids won't come true.
Right.
There's so many different combinations in that. And I always find the seeds that I like and the plants that I like, I grow for years, and then all of a sudden they have new and improved, and I can't find what I want.
Right.
For lettuce, I just love green ice. It's a loose leaf lettuce, and it grows beautifully. The last couple of years, I've put it in a window box on my deck,
Pretty.
which is very handy. And for peas, I love green arrow. I love the taste of green arrow, and so does the woodchuck. It never even got to the pea stage,
Oh,
but
yeah.
in the plants.
Yeah.
So, and what happened recently, I went online and I called this heirloom company, and this is one of was my favorite snapdragon,
Oh, beautiful.
and it was a panorama. And for the longest time, I couldn't find any. After it kind of lost its popularity, you could buy it in huge packets of seeds, which I think you could sow all of Swanzey with it. And so I called this company, and for a minute or so, I was almost overjoyed when he said, "Oh yeah, we have that." And then he looked through the catalog. He said, "Oh no, it's not in this catalog anymore."
Oh, isn't that sad?
But this is heirloom seeds.
Yeah, heirloom really is a good way to go because you can always save those seeds
Yes.
and get exactly what you're looking for.
So he sent this to me almost right away, and he said their new catalog is coming up in December. So I'm hoping that I can find some of my favorites.
Yeah, yeah.
The same thing with marigolds. I like the Ladies series. They're nice, big, compact. I would get the really bright yellow ones. And one year I couldn't find them, and I had to substitute. And I enter the fair a lot. And I brought this large marigold, and you put 3 in a jar. And I saw a woman walk in, and I knew she had the Ladies series. And I said, "She's going to get the blue, and I'm not."
Oh.
And it worked out that way.
Oh,
She
gosh.
got because they're just so perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you find something that you like, you really should try to stick with it. I can also say from my experience, I have certain things that I've tried because I thought, well, I'll just try something a little bit different. It's good to try something different, but you're probably going to go back to the things that really
Yes.
that you like, that you love the flavor of, that work well for you. One of the things that I see in the garden, unfortunately, quite a bit, is that moldy stuff that comes on the squash leaves, things like that.
Oh.
What is that?
Is it white?
Yeah, it looks like it's kind of
Mildew?
like a mildew. Yeah, yeah. Is there anything that you can do for those? I know you can buy plants that are better, so you don't get the
resistant
mildew.
to that. Yeah. That's the one thing to look through the catalogs and make sure that you get resistant and to other blights.
Right.
But I have to nicely admit that in my garden, I don't even turn it over every year. I have wide beds, and so they're not walked on. And so when I plant in the spring, I just hand cultivate it a little bit. And because when you use a cultivator, when you rototill, it's deeper and you're bringing up all new weed seeds. And so this way you just hand cultivate it, scratch a little bit, and add your manure or compost or whatever, and the green sand, and then plant. And I haven't had, knock wood, haven't had trouble with bugs, or some people had tomato hornworm this year, and that seems to run in cycles. And I didn't have that on anything, and my potato plants didn't have potato bugs. And so to me, it's worthwhile to garden organically and stay away from anything that kills all the good bugs.
Right, right. And that's, of course, in my backyard, Jen and I are both into bugs. So we want all of the good bugs. We don't want as many of the bad bugs, but there are ways that you can do that so that you don't invite them into your garden quite so often. So
I have even, at one point, I think it was from California, bought ladybugs. And I put them in my greenhouse just because sometimes in the greenhouse atmosphere you get white flies and things like that.
Right.
But this whole package it was a small package, and they tell you how to release it, and I released it in the greenhouse, and they took care of everything, but there was not enough food for them to eat, so they petered out and died. And
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I've been doing some research lately on bumblebees and honeybees and things that you can buy to bring into your gardens. And, you know, you really have to do some research on them because, yeah, they are good, but maybe it won't be sustainable because there's more to it than just having them do that quick thing. Again, you know, being organic and looking at the long-term picture is more important sometimes with your garden than getting something to grow and having it, you know, snap right into to the way
But
it's
I'd
gonna
like
be.
to encourage people, if they've never started seeds before or have even gardened, it's fun, it's good exercise, and it's rewarding because you can see not only beautiful flowers, but you can eat what you plant. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
The yield is great.
Yeah, and that's the best. Do you do canning at all or
I
anything
used
like
to,
that?
I
Yeah.
used to, but it's just me now. And yeah, I used to, not so much preserving.
Right.
I did jams and jellies. And one year I had a bumper crop of carrots. I had 90 pounds of carrots.
So you must have a good garden. So what did you do with your carrots?
I froze them, blanched them and froze them.
Yeah.
And I was standing there chopping the carrots, and my dog loved the carrots, and
Oh, yeah.
they would be flying off the island, and
Yeah.
he would be picking them up.
Yeah.
But those I froze, and mostly everything I freeze them.
Yeah.
Because I don't, I stay away from pressure cookers because of two
Yeah.
experiences,
Yeah.
even though I was careful
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
And it's easy to just prepare them, blanch them, and
Right.
get them into.
Right. And they taste really fresh.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of the
Yeah.
good things about freezing.
Yeah.
So just as long as you know about it a little bit. So what you can do is you can go online and get more information about all these kinds of things. These are just meant to encourage you to go out and realize that it's not hard to plant seeds.
No.
No. And June's been doing it for a long time. So
Yes.
she does have her articles in the Sentinel. So keep an eye out for those.
Every Sunday.
Yeah. And I look forward to them and wonder what topic is going to be coming up, each week. So again, it's been great having you, June, in the shed here.
My pleasure.
Excellent. And we'll be watching for, more on your information. So again, most of this information and supplies were from Achille Agway. There are other garden centers in the area, so please visit them as well. They can answer a lot of your questions, so just make sure you ask questions if you have any concerns or don't quite know what way to go, and they'll help you, of course. So this is June and Jody in my backyard. If you're interested in more information about our show or interested in being a guest or have a topic that you'd like to have us talk about a little bit, you can email Jenna and myself, and we are at, inmybackyardch8@gmail.com, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. So thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you in my backyard.